threatened to cut off my daughter's allowance. She didn't believe me until it was too late. The soft ticking of the wall clock echoed through the kitchen as I sat at the table, head in my hands. I wasn't sure how it had come to this. For the first time in 17 years, I felt as though my relationship with my only child, Anna, was slipping away from me like water through my fingers. I was no stranger to hardship. Life as a single father had never been easy, especially since Anna's mother had cheated and walked out when our daughter was just 6. I had dedicated everything, my time, my energy, my love, to raising her alone. But this time, I was exhausted, and something had to give. It all started a few months ago. Anna had gotten herself into trouble, real trouble. Trouble that could have impacted her future in ways she didn't even realize, and I had to pull every string, call in every favor, and move mountains just to keep her from falling into the abyss. She didn't see that, though. To her, it was a brief inconvenience, an overblown problem that was solved as quickly as it appeared. The gravity of what could have happened never registered. For days afterward, we didn't speak much. I had been consumed with the stress of handling the aftermath. When I finally tried to talk to her about it, she brushed me off as if it wasn't a big deal. That indifference struck me harder than any argument could have. She hadn't apologized, hadn't shown an ounce of remorse. In that moment, something inside me snapped. For years, I had provided for her, shielding her from the world's cruelty, making sure she had everything she needed and more, without a mother's presence to help. I'd sacrificed my own happiness, my own comfort, my own dreams, all so she could thrive. And here she was, not even acknowledging how close she had come to disaster, nor the lengths I had gone to protect her. Anna, I had said one evening after dinner, the tension in my voice thick, "We need to talk." She barely looked up from her phone, fingers flying across the screen. About what? Her dismissive tone was the final straw. "About your allowance," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. I've decided to cut it off. Finally, she raised her head, eyes wide. "What? You're not serious." "I am," I replied firmly. "You don't seem to understand the gravity of what you did. And if you can't appreciate the support I've given you, then maybe it's time you learn what it's like not to have it." She stared at me, mouth slightly open, clearly shocked. "You can't be serious," she repeated, her voice rising in disbelief. "I'm dead serious, Anna." Her reaction was immediate and visceral. "This is so unfair," she yelled, standing up from the table, her face twisted in anger. "You think you can just take my money away like that? Are you brave enough to go through with it? You'll cave." He had expected some pushback, but her words stung, sharp and cutting. She didn't think I had the strength to follow through, didn't think I had the backbone to stand by my decision. "I'm not bluffing," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're 17, Anna. You need to learn responsibility. You need to understand that actions have consequences." "You're pathetic," she spat, her face reddening. "You think you're teaching me some lesson? You're just punishing me because you can't handle your own life. You're sad and lonely, and you think cutting me off will make you feel powerful." Her words hung in the air, each one like a dagger to my heart. I hadn't expected such cruelty, such venom. I stared at her for a long moment, my chest tight, my heart heavy. I had done everything I could to be a good father to her, to give her the love and stability she needed, despite the circumstances. And this was how she saw me. "I'm doing this because I love you," I said quietly, my voice shaking, "because I care about your future." She scoffed, grabbing her bag and storming out of the room. "Whatever, you'll change your mind in a week." But I didn't. The next few weeks were like living in a Cold War. Anna barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was only to hurl bitter comments my way. She made it clear she believed I would relent, that this was just a temporary punishment, a power move I wouldn't have the guts to stick to. And every day that passed, I felt a deeper rift growing between us. I still tried to do what I could for her, cooking meals, asking her about school, making sure she had what she needed. But she rejected every effort. She refused to eat the dinners I prepared, instead choosing to eat at her friend's house, leaving my carefully cooked meals to go cold and untouched on the table. Sometimes, he'd wake up in the morning to find that she had come home late, long after I had gone to bed, her footsteps silent as she tiptoed past my room. It was heartbreaking. I felt like I was losing her, bit by bit, and the more distant she became, the more my heart ached. I couldn't shake the image of my little girl, the one who used to curl up in my lap and fall asleep, trusting me with her whole heart. Now, she looked at me with disdain, as if I were nothing more than an obstacle in her life. The words she had thrown at me during their argument replayed in my mind every night. Sad and lonely. Was that how she saw me? Was that what I had become? It wasn't until one evening, a month into the standoff, that something inside me snapped. I had spent the whole day at work stressing over deadlines and bills, only to come home to another untouched meal and an empty house. Anna hadn't even bothered to leave a note saying where she had gone. I sat at the table, staring at the cold plate of food I had prepared for her. I had tried to care for her despite everything, to show her that I was still there for her, even though she had hurt him, but it was never enough. She didn't want my care. She didn't want my love. Not like this. With a heavy sigh, I stood up and began to clear the table, dumping the uneaten food into the trash. That was the last time, I told himself. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep putting himself out there, only to be rejected time and time again. If she didn't want me to care, then maybe I needed to stop. For the next few days, I withdrew. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped cooking her meals. I stopped waiting up for her when she stayed out late. It wasn't easy. It went against every instinct I had as a father, but I couldn't keep torturing himself like this. I needed to protect what little was left of my heart. It wasn't until the night of the party that everything changed. Anna had gone out, as she often did, without telling me where she was going or when she would be back. I had grown used to it by now, the silence between us. It still hurt, but I had learned to numb himself to it. But that night, just as I was getting ready for bed, my phone rang. It was one of Anna's friends, her voice panicked and hurried. "She's in trouble," the girl said, her words rushing out. "She's at a party, and things get out of hand. You need to come get her." My heart stopped. Without another word, I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door. The drive to the party was a blur, my mind racing with worry. When I arrived, the scene was chaotic. Teenagers scattered everywhere, music blaring from the house. But all I could think about was finding Anna. I spotted her sitting on the curb, her head in her hands, her body trembling. Relief flooded through me as I rushed to her side. "Anna," I breathed, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay?" She looked up at me, her face pale and tear-streaked. For the first time in months, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't anger or disdain. It was fear, vulnerability. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I messed up. I didn't need to know the details. I didn't need to hear what had happened at the party. All that mattered was that she was safe, that she was here with me." Without thinking, I pulled her into my arms, holding her tightly. She didn't resist. Instead, she clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder. For the first time in what felt like forever, she let me be her father again. In the days that followed, things didn't magically go back to the way we were. There was still a lot of hurt, a lot of anger, a lot of distance to bridge. But that night at the party had been a turning point for both of us. Anna began to realize how much trouble she had caused, not just for herself, but for me. She had put me through so much stress, so much heartache, and yet I had always been there for her, even when she didn't deserve it. One afternoon, she sat down at the kitchen table where I was sipping my coffee. "Dad," she began, her voice soft. "I'm really sorry for everything. I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at her, my expression weary but hopeful. "I know, Anna. I know you didn't. I was just angry at a lot of things, and I took it out on you." "I understand," I said quietly. "But we need to move forward. We can't keep going like this." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you." "You won't," I assured her, reaching out to take her hand. "But we need to work on this. We can't just pretend everything's okay." And so, we made a decision, together, to seek help. Therapy wasn't an easy step, but it was necessary. We needed to learn how to communicate again, how to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It wasn't easy at first. The therapy sessions were emotional, raw, and at times uncomfortable. But slowly, we began to find their way back to each other. The process was slow, but each step forward felt like a small victory. We still have a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, there was hope. Anna had realized how much her father cared for her, how much I had sacrificed for her, and how much she had taken that for granted. And I had learned that I couldn't shield her from the world forever. She needed to learn her own lessons, to face the consequences of her actions. Update. Months later, as we sat together at the dinner table, laughing over something trivial, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we had come. The tension that had once filled the air between us had eased, replaced by a new understanding, a new respect for each other. Anna was still my daughter, and I was still her father, but our relationship had evolved. It was no longer about control or rebellion. It was about mutual care, about working through the hard times together. I knew there would be more challenges ahead, more fights, more misunderstandings, but now we had the tools to face us. Now, we knew that no matter how tough things got, we would always have each other. And that was enough. As I watched Anna clear the dishes from the table, humming softly to herself, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. She wasn't perfect, none of us were, but she was trying. We both were. For the first time in a long time, I allowed himself to believe that we were going to be okay. And that, in the end, was all I had ever wanted.